Welcome to another Sunday morning conversation, everybody. Today, my guest is Tommy Struzzieri. He is a race director and owner of the Alpha Win production team. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. Hear some of his races and find out why. I don't know why, because I never mute myself.
Okay.
How's it going, Tommy?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, great. How are you?
Good, man. You have a Dago last name if I've ever heard one, and I have one.
Yeah. Hang on a second. Yeah, it's Italian, right? So
Yeah, definitely.
yeah,
Throw in some Z's in there. It's definitely Italian.
yeah, easy one to spell.
Mine's Esposito. It's probably the most common Italian last name.
Yeah. So what's going on?
So, man, I was reading about you guys, and I mean, you're pretty young to take over. Is this kind of what your business plan is? Are you going to college too, and like doing this part time on the side, or how's that working for you?
No, it's full time. And my business plan, of course, is to try to provide the best customer service possible, provide some different options for new triathletes and returning triathletes and all all endurance athletes to get back into racing and in a safe way. So that's the plan right now. I'm working on it full time, out of school. Pretty excited. My dad works with me, and we work pretty well together.
What was your major? Does it relate to this?
Yeah, I was a business major. So it relates. It's running a business. Of course, that's probably in one of those top goals, right? So is to try to make money eventually. So that is part of why I went to school.
Yeah, man. So tell me about some of your races, man. I mean, I've never had a chance to do one. If any time that there would be one, it would be. Do you still have Ocala? Do you still do
We
that
have
one?
Ocala. Yep, we reintroduced that after a little hiatus, which actually worked out because it was in 2020, that one year that we took off anyway. And we're back in Ocala. We go so in Florida, we have races in Florida, California, New York right now, spread around the country. We have a 3-race series in Florida, Ocala, Sarasota in January, and then we have a new race this year, a distance for everyone from marathon to 1 mile race in Ave Maria, Florida. So that's our Florida series.
What are the complications into running 4 separate races at once?
Yeah, I mean it's a challenge, right? So if you ran one race, it's mostly staffing, trying to get people in place as early as possible. We just finished a race in June Lake, California, the June Lake Triathlon, where, you have sprint, Olympic, and half, which is only 3 events. And usually we're, a lot of the times we're running 4 or 5 events, all on the same day, sprint, Olympic, and half. You've got to get your staff members or volunteers in place before the whole day, right? They got to be at the water the whole day, the bike the whole day, and the run the whole day. And if you were doing a one race, let's say if it was a half distance 70.3, it would be a lot easier. You could bring those people from the swim and man the run or something like that. So mostly staffing, and logistically it's just much more difficult because all 3 of those events are going on at the same time.
Yeah, I can see that. Now, your June Lake one, that's not at Yosemite, but it's kind of like in the shadow of Yosemite. It's like I can hit it with a football, right?
Yes. Yeah. It's there's only really that road 395 that goes up there. And you have to go through Yosemite to get there. So depending on where you're going, it's a great winter location. It's a great place to spend your winters, skiing and stuff like that. But there's that one road that's a little tough to get up. You need some chains in the winter. But yeah, we love it there. It's a beautiful location. If you're standing on the beach looking out at the water, you're in awe, right? I mean, it's the water is blue from the reflection from the sun, and the mountains in the background just provide the greatest backdrop. So
you haven't really stuck around local. Like you didn't start like in a region. You took off with HITS and this, but you're pretty spread out. What are the complications involved in hauling all that gear across the country?
Yeah, so my strategy has been so right now we do, again, Florida, New York, and California. My strategy has been to get 2 sets of gear, right? One on the West Coast and one on the East Coast. The way our schedule works out right now is we do a few events in Florida, and then we're out of Florida. Mostly our events are in the winter time in Florida, because that's also we do other types of events in that same area. So it makes it easy for us. And then, well, not easy for us, but makes it more simple. And then we bring our stuff north to New York, and we have another we have another we stage stuff as well in California. So we're able to sometimes, I do have to drive cross country sometimes, but for the most part, I'm able to keep stuff on both sides of the country.
That must be nice. Tell me what it's like having a January half Ironman. Like, I live in Atlanta and it still gets cold and I can't fathom like doing it in January.
It's mostly about the air temperature in the morning, right? The water temperature is fine in Sarasota, January. Because really, two biggest things about running a triathlon, as you know, is water temperature and air temperature. And water temperature is fine in Sarasota every year. Probably low 70s, which is great. And then it gets a little cool in the morning some years, but we got lucky last year, and it was a good morning for us. And when you're cool in the morning and you get out of the water, that's when it gets a little more difficult. But that date has worked out pretty well for us with it, warming up a little bit. We start a little later in January. We'll start at 8 o'clock rather than 7 o'clock, just to avoid those cool mornings in Florida.
What kind of draw do you get to that race, being that it is in January?
Love to have that race be bigger. It's right now sitting around 450. It's been pretty consistent, but that's one race where we ran it every year, right? We have not paused that race. I think it's a 6th year coming now, and we ran it right through COVID. So we did masks, we did social distancing, we did a staggered start. We did all that stuff for that race. It was very difficult, but I'm pretty proud of the fact that we haven't paused that race. In the beginning of 2021, we were able to run it. So,
have you had any COVID scares?
We have not. Our protocols, as of right now, you probably know that there really are minimal protocols for COVID in the endurance world, fortunately, because it's a big comeback, and we're able to get vaccinated and have people come to races. But during COVID, we implemented protocols that we had no cases, and fortunately, we still have everybody that's come to our races come home safely, and so we're really fortunate about that.
That's nice, man. So you've got the 3 races. Do you have anything like an expansion plan? I'm not saying like next year, but do you have any like 3 or 5 year benchmarks where you want to launch more?
I do, yeah. So how I look at it is I'm a pretty ambitious person, and our team is ambitious, and I'd like to have more events. I have a couple of them in the works. How I look at it as if in 5 years from now, if I introduced 10 more races, you'd say that's pretty good. But right now, it seems like I've slowed down on introducing races. But in the last year, the last couple of years, we've gone from 4 races to, I think we're sitting 12 or 13 right now. So if we look back in 10 years and we have 25 races, we'll be pretty happy and have a fledgling business and be able to grow the sport just like we want to.
Yeah, I've always thought, at least if I were a race director and had a company, that I would try to push more towards consistency rather than quantity and let it take off on its own, build the brand within. But that's just my personal philosophy. I don't know if you kind of subscribe to that same idea.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. So it may seem like we haven't introduced a race in 6 months, but it's only been 6 months, right? So we're looking at other races, but we don't want to choose the wrong one because we're kind of filtering through these events, whether it makes sense to go to these remote locations. It's pretty difficult to go there. and we're finding the good ones and trying to keep them and grow them. That's our plan right now.
Yeah, Yosemite's pretty remote. I don't even know what the nearest decent sized airport is. Isn't it Palm Springs?
No, I'd say if you were gonna fly into maybe Reno, Nevada, that'd probably be the closest one. I of course flew into San Francisco. That's where my equipment is, and our team drove down from San Francisco. But they do have Mammoth has an airport there, but it's very small and they have limited amount of flights.
Yeah, I can see that. So I'm just kind of intrigued by Yosemite, man, because I've seen you. I wanted to do the race sometime, but it's just the lack of a direct flight kind of deters me,
Yeah. So that race interesting, right? So we acquired that race during COVID. It had been discontinued. The person running it is a great person and did a great job at the race. So we were intrigued by it. But we reintroduced it in 2021, and we had about 250 athletes. And then this past weekend we had 500. So that's one of the, and it's kind of at its all-time high again. That's where it was in the past. But that's a great sign for our sport, that they're coming back, and it's a great sign for us because hopefully people notice how the effort we're putting in. I'm not sure everybody would agree with we're doing a great job, but if 99% do, that satisfies me. So,
well, obviously you can't be Iron Man and you don't want to be Iron Man, and that's kind of what turns on some people and turns off other people. Me, I kind of like the smaller, independent kind of vibe because it takes on the flavor of the race director rather than the corporate feel. It's a different experience every time. It's, you get some wacky race directors. So, it's always interesting. So I kind of tend to trend towards that. And the fact that they are cheaper, how do you keep your entry fees much lower?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about keeping expenses down, right? So when somebody comes to race, they might, not have a few things that Ironman might offer, but it's also a quarter of the price. So you kind of have to make those. That's why I went to business school, right? Make those decisions. So you make the right decisions, try to keep your expenses down so that you can keep the fees at a price that people can afford.
Yeah, and I've got plenty of swag that I've either thrown away or donated by this point that I didn't even need.
People like swag. That's one thing I have to say. People like free stuff. So we try our best to give out stuff like that.
What are your race expos like? I mean, I've never been to your race, so I couldn't actually know.
Yeah, the race expos are minimal right now. I have to say, it almost seems like, we have a lot of outreach and we try really hard to get people there, but people are just so busy right now, as you know. So vendors and people like that, they don't need to go to events to get the business they want. So right now we're trying to grow them. It's probably something that people would definitely comment on, and I agree with. It's something that we're going to try to build over time. We were definitely bigger in the past. So
that sounds great. So, man, what are your plans going forward? And I'll get you out of here on this one.
Yeah, I mean, again, I do want to add a few more events. I want to grow the ones I have, of course. And then I continue every time I do an event, our team learns from it. We've got a great team. We would continually get better. We do things more simply. That way we can focus our effort on other things. Right now, this past couple of years, the goal has been to get the meat and potatoes right. Get the swim, bike, and run to be safe. Get it to be those three events, just for somebody to come in and say these three events went perfectly, but I didn't get the swag I wanted. And then we can add the swag. Then we can add the great big finish line and stuff like that. But right now we're still trying to perfect, and I think we've gotten pretty close on perfecting those three disciplines and making them a perfect race for somebody.
Swag aside, do you think you got good finisher medals?
I think our finisher medals are great. I can show you my office. My office is layered with finisher medals all over the wall. So it's I can even show you. I got some finisher medals here. We have our three awards medals for this year. We did a new awards, different awards for age groupers. And then we have a 3-part right here. We have a 3-part medal that we're doing for our New York series that combines into we only done one so far, so that's why I only have one up, but it'll combine into a large medal. So yeah, we try hard on our finisher medals. And yes, I would say that we have great finisher medals.
Great, man. Hey, Tommy, thanks for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Eric.
Enjoy the rest of your week.
You too. Thanks.